Good afternoon all. So today I am going to discuss about lecture 2 that we have planned on 16th June 2020. So we'll discuss some of the concept of degree of freedom 4 bar mechanism, slider crank mechanism and its application in lecture 2. Before that we have to understand some of the basic and technical terms regarding the same. Okay, so this is our unit number 1, which is introduction to mechanism, in which we are going to study the links, pairs, kinematic chain mechanisms, degree of freedom, four link mechanisms, slider crank mechanism, mobility and the range of movement. So it is necessary to understand some of the technical terms before going in detail with the degree of freedom and the types of mechanism. So first term is the statics. So I think most of you are familiar with the word statics. So it is what? It deals with the study of forces acting on the machine which is at rest. So whatever the forces acting on the system which is at rest, so these forces are nothing but what? Statics, and that science is basically what? Statics. Dynamics. It deals with the study of forces acting on various part of the machine. So suppose machine is in motion, like anything. Suppose IC engine there, it is a machine. It is using different mechanisms for its operation. So like slider cam mechanism is there. After that, cam and follower mechanism is there. Okay, so this mechanism will help the machine to perform its operation. Okay, so any machine which is in running conditions, so it is subjected to some forces because of motion. So when we going to study these forces acting on the machine which are in motion, so that part is basically called as dynamics. Kinematics. So what is kinematics? It is the study of motion quite apart from the forces which produce that motions. So it is a study of position, displacement, rotation, speed, velocity and acceleration. So kinematic deals with only what? It deals with the any object which is in motion. So if you want to find out the position, displacement and the acceleration for that object, so then we use the concept of kinematics. Okay, what is kinetics? It is the study of inertia forces which arise due to the combined effect. So in kinetics we are dealing with the study of inertia forces acting on the object. Okay, so what is actually inertia force? It is the force which is arises due to the mass of that object. So whenever any object is moving, so it is subjected to inertia forces because of its mass. Okay, so the magnitude of inertia force is equal to what? Exactly equal and opposite to the magnitude of force which is causing its acceleration, that is called as accelerating force. Okay, so kinetics deals with the study of inertia forces which are arises due to the combined effect. Now next part is the structure. So it is defined as a combination of rigid or resistance bodies assembled, they having no relative motion in between them and transmit only forces. So before going to the structure, we have to understand what is the rigid body, rigid or resistance bodies. So when we apply the forces on rigid or resistance bodies, they are not get deformed because of these forces. So they are called as rigid bodies. So if we use such rigid body to form a one particular assembly, that assembly does not have any relative motion. We can like use the different steel channel. If we connect this steel channel with the help of welding joint, so that joint doesn't allow any relative motion between the different links. Okay, so that's why the mobility of that structure is zero. Okay, so there will be no movement. Okay, but what happens if we apply the force on that assembly? It is able to transmit that force, okay, to various links, and it can finally transmit it to the ground. Okay, so these structures are helpful to bear the loads. Okay, so loads for bearing the load in case of like bridges are there. Okay, you can find the different structures which are constructed to bear the load of the different vehicles, okay, which are moving on the bridge. Okay, so there is no relative motion in that case, so that is why it is called as structure. So mobility for that case, it is zero. Okay, so structure is similar to what it is, assembly of different linkages, but that linkages are not having relative motion. They are the fixed linkages. We are using the fixed joint in between them, like permanent joint, like welding joint. Okay, so that is the structure. So always remember that the degree of freedom, okay, degree of freedom for the structure is always zero. Okay, or mobility for the structure is always zero. Now what is mechanism? So we have already studied the structure. Now what is mechanism? So mechanism is what? It is an assembly again of moving parts. So what is the difference between structure and mechanism? So structure is a assembly of fixed parts which is having a permanent joints or fixed joints. Okay, while mechanism is the assembly of moving parts performing a complete functional motion. So in mechanism we are able to transmit motion from one part to another part. So that is the main important difference between structure and mechanisms. So mechanisms are basically having moving joints. Okay, like you can take an example of your compass. Okay, so that compass is having two links. Okay, so that between the two links there is a one joint. That joint allows the revolute motion between the two links of the compass. Okay, so that type of joint that allows relative motion between the two components, so that joint is called as the moving joint. Okay, so mechanism is assembly of what? Moving joints which are interconnected. Okay, and because of that the motion is possible. What is mechanism? It is a device designed to transform input forces and movement into desired set of output forces and movements. So mechanism is normally used for transmitting the forces as well as motion. So mechanism generally consists of moving components such as gear, gear trains, belt, chain drives, cam and follower mechanism, and linkage as well as the frictional devices such as brakes, clutches, and the structural component such as frame, fasteners, bearings, springs, lubricants. Lubricant also can be a part of mechanism because it is also one of the link for that mechanism. That is a flexible link. We will also see that types of linkages and seals as well as the variety of specialized machine elements such as splines, spin and keys. So this is a short introduction for the difference between machines and mechanism. Hope you have understand the difference between machine and mechanism.